Hello and welcome to Politics here on France 24. The presidential race is in full swing here in France. Everyone thinks that it will be a two-way race between the incumbent, conservative President Nicolas Sarkozy, and his socialist rival François Hollande. But there are a few smaller candidates who beg to disagree and are hoping to pull off an upset and get through to the second round. One is, of course, Marine Le Pen, the far-right leader, whose father did it back in 2002. You also have François Bayrou, a centrist leader who scored 18% back in 2007. And recently joining the second pack, if you will, is Jean-Luc Mélenchon from the Left Front, a coalition comprising the Communist Party. So joining me on the set are representatives of two of the second pack of candidates. Raquel Garrido, who's international spokesperson for the Left Front. Hello and welcome.
Hi.
And also on the set, Stéphane Cosset, who's the president of the centrist party, the MoDem, here in Paris.
Hello.
Welcome to you too. Last but not least, Bruno Jambard, the director of polling with Opinionway. And we're actually going to start with some polling numbers just so that you can see what the state of the presidential race is now. So for now, in round one of the election, the socialist candidate François Hollande would arrive first. There have been a number of polls, but in the ones we're showing, he's ahead with 30%. In front of the incumbent, Nicolas Sarkozy, with 26%. Marine Le Pen is at 16%. And the two candidates we'll talk about, François Bayrou is at 11.5%, and Jean-Luc Mélenchon is at 10%. And Jean-Luc Mélenchon recently joined that club, while we see the second round where François Hollande would win handily over Nicolas Sarkozy. So Jean-Luc Mélenchon recently joined the two-figure club, and his ideas have been very much the talk of the town recently. The socialist candidate François Hollande said he wanted to tax households earning over $1 million with a rate of 75%, which is close to an idea advocated by Mr. Mélenchon. Conservative President Nicolas Sarkozy wants to go after the French who live abroad to avoid paying taxes. So all those ideas seems to be lifted from the playbook of Jean-Luc Mélenchon, and he seems quite happy about it.
They are making me more acceptable, so this is good for me. Contrary to what many people think, it's much more comfortable for me to lay out my concrete yet radical platform when everyone borrows my words, my expressions, in one way or another. So the leftist front is spreading, and you see what I would call a Mélenchonization of the mind.
Raquel Garrido, isn't he getting a little bit too excited? Good poll. Some people are reprising some of the ideas.
Clearly, this campaign is showing momentum for Jean-Luc Mélenchon and the Left Front. Tens of thousands of people are showing up in our meetings all over France. The energy put into the campaign by hundreds and thousands of people tend to confirm what the polls seem to be now realizing. But we knew that we were high in influence in the country, in approval. There's some sort of confidence in our word. Our program, I think, hits a nerve in the cultural background in France, which claims equality, more social justice, environmental justice. So we should be happy. But what we need now is to go, of course, further than 10%, and I'm sure we will. We believe there's an important discussion inside of the left in Europe on, for instance, the austerity plans, which is one core issue the left has to settle. We don't believe in austerity plans. We believe in reactivating the economy and implementing environmental planification and redistribution of wealth. And so we just hope that democracy will permit the people to decide who's right.
You really think that you can gain 20 percentage points on François Hollande? I mean, is this serious?
Well, we don't need to actually get 20% on François Hollande. There's many people in France, that abstain, that don't vote. For instance, in the blue-collar class, the working class, the abstention rates are up to 70%. So we're trying to put something of truth into this campaign so that people who abstain, people from the left that tend to abstain, come on board, participate in the civic exercise. And yes, at the end of the day, that might turn out to be more people than the Socialist Party. But as long as each one does its job, we have to do our job in our space. The Socialists can try to convince whomever they want to convince with their austerity program. And at the end, well, the left will have to be together to beat Sarkozy and the extreme right, because let me remind you that that's the issue at stake here. Sarkozy is the incumbent, and he's leading an extreme right. His discourse is going to the extreme right.
We'll
That's
we'll
very
get
dangerous.
Back to that. There was actually a headline this week in the Wall Street Journal saying Nicolas Le Pen, which created some buzz here. I want to get to the Modem. The Modem is basically, I'm not going to say the total opposite of the left front, but François Bayrou has been saying for years, we need to be careful with our debt, with our deficit. And so what's your reaction when you see some of the ideas coming from, I would say, the hard left or the tough left, I don't know how to, are gaining influence among, I would say, the mainstream candidates?
Well, some of the ideas, what are those ideas? Those are minor ideas. I mean, how are you going to tax the wealthiest of the wealthiest? Big deal. How are you going to reinstate borders, trade borders, customs in the European Union? It's absolutely not realistic. So in the end, what we are saying is that those ideas that you are presenting are not major ideas, are not important ideas, crucial ideas on how you're going to reduce the debt in the country, how are you going to resume growth in the country. So during this campaign, we are not talking about serious, substantive
But this
issues.
includes also the main candidates, I should say, François Hollande and Nicolas Sarkozy. So you're saying they're jumping on those issues, but why? Why do they do this then?
We are talking about halal, we are talking about Schengen, we are talking about polls, we are talking about everything but what is the most important right now, which is that this country is moving into a chaos, and how are you going to move out of this chaos? How are you going to reduce the debt? How are you going to reduce public expenditure? How are you going to increase taxes?
But do you feel that this message, which is François Bayrou's message, and has been for years, often alone, now less so, why do you think it's not being heard more? François Hollande, according to François Bayrou, according to the polls, is between 10, 14%, but he's not rising. I mean, he's been on this level for a while.
Well, there is always this idea that you have that you need a fight between the left and the right in this country, that you need two candidates, one that is left, the other that is right, and in the end, you have still no room for other candidates to speak out and to have, again, a substantive debate on major issues for the country.
I think Modem's problem is probably that on what you were saying on public expenditure, on austerity plans, I think your discourse seems somewhat redundant with what Sarkozy has already been doing for 5 years, because what Sarkozy is actually doing in real life today is reducing public expenditure and talking about the debt as a pretense to lower ever public expenditure and implement austerity plans. So your discourse, you're saying we just have to do the same.
As far as I know, during the term of Mr. Sarkozy, the debt has significantly increased.
Yes, but
in 2007
because
there
of
was
tax cuts,
a much
because
higher
of tax
budget
cuts.
deficit. Sarkozy went to Brussels in 2007 and said, I do not want to meet the rules that are imposed by Brussels. So I don't think that you can
so
take...
again, just before we continue this discussion, I want to get to Bruno Jambard, who can tell us if it's really heading towards a two-way race, or if those candidates who are behind and are hoping to rise still have a chance. It's less than 2 months away before round one of the election.
Well, the French presidential election is never a two candidates race. It has always been a first round before the second round, and the result of the second round will be made by the result of the first round. So it's very important to really look at what's going to happen on the 22nd of April and not on the 6th of May, because the 6th of May is not the problem for the moment. So I think that it's obviously very difficult for other candidates than the candidate from the UMP or the Socialist Party to qualify for the second round. But even if the others are not qualifying, I mean, the level of vote that they will obtain on the first round will be very important for the second round, will be very important for the way the next presidency will be. It's not the same if, for example, the left front has less than 10% than more than 10%. It's not the same than that if François Bayrou has only 13% or 16 or more, even if he's not qualified for the second round. And it's the same for the National Front, because it will really define how will be the sharing of the votes between the different political parties, and how will be made also the alliance for the second round.
Is it difficult to have a candidate? You're saying we're going to be ahead. François Bayrou is saying I'm going to be in the second round. But somewhere in the back of your mind, you must think, okay, realistically, we have less chances. So how can you run and knowing that there's a good chance that you'll lose?
I remember telling you months and months ago that we were at 10% easy, and you said that will never happen. We probably have that on tape. And politics isn't about, percentage of people knowing exactly. Politics in France is something very much alive. Most of the people still today, and whatever the polls say, most of the people don't know who they're going to vote for. The ideas are not clear. There's big defiance against politics in general. Let's not forget that France today is very much in a situation as was Argentina in 2001 in the midst of the crisis. There's something of a que se vayan todos, get the bums out. There's something of that in French politics, in the people. So everything is very open. And it much depends on whether there's dynamics, whether people come into the race as voters or stay home saying, we just don't believe in any of them. And especially these zigzags from Sarkozy or others do not tend to put more credibility into their words. To the contrary, because people see that what he actually did was to implement enormous tax cuts that deprived our treasury from money to put to investment. So he was
just
agree on this.
But the reason
exactly
is the tax cuts.
Just earlier.
Yes,
Sorry,
so the solution is
he's
to
not the candidate of budgetary discipline.
But the
Sorry.
problem,
François
I agree
Bayrou,
with you, but the
Bayrou
solution, sir, is to put more taxes,
let me add
not
something.
less.
I think that the reason for which we are extremely determined to continue this election, and we think that in the end François Bayrou will be in the second round, is that we are just telling the truth, and the French will hear the truth. The truth is that there is a lot to be done in terms of resuming growth, in terms of producing more in the country, and in terms of reducing the budgetary deficit.
I understand, but do they want to hear a sad truth or a nice dream?
Well, sorry to say it, but I don't think this is sad to say that if we all together, through a government of national unity, all together, left, right, and center, during a couple of years, we do what needs to be done. But then at the end of that, there is hope, there is thinking, there is vision for the country. Then I do not think that this is sad, but on the contrary, this is hope that we have.
Bruno Jambard, in terms of this idea of a center in France has never really taken hold for a presidential election. I mentioned François Bayrou performed rather well last time, but then this didn't really materialize. Is there still a vacuum in the center of French politics, or can something be built on this?
Not really, because, if you look at the history of the Fifth Republic, in 1974, the center win the election with Valéry Giscard d'Estaing. At that time, it was really different scene as the conservative part of the country, and he won against the Gaullist side. So I would say that there is a kind of paradox with François Bayrou. He's now the French most popular political man in the country. I mean, in all our surveys, we see that he's the most popular from everyone, from all the candidates, even more than François Hollande. But he has difficulty to convert this popularity in votes. It's because, as you said, it's very difficult to change this two left and right system, of course. So it's a very difficult task for him to do that. I'm not sure that he will be able to do it, because if he wants to win this bet, he has to eliminate someone on the first round, and it seems that this time maybe the one that could be eliminate the most easily would be Sarkozy. But Sarkozy, for the moment, he has gathered all the voters, many voters of the right side for him, and he really achieved during this campaign to mobilize them again. So it's difficult for
I agree.
Biden.
I agree. There's a discussion inside of the right between the extreme right and the center. And the right, because if you look, for instance, on the issue of disciplinary budget, they all agree that we have to reduce expenditure. If you actually implement the 0.5 rule on budget, you would have to have 100 billion, tax cuts per year in France as of next year. So that's terrible. That's exactly what the French don't want. That's exactly what why the French disagree with Sarkozy, why we would have liked to have elections before. I remind you something important. In France, the president is irresponsible in front of the parliament. It's not like in other countries. So we had, for instance, in 2010, 3 million people on strike, and he didn't budge. So this is important. That's why a new theme is coming up. A new theme is coming up, which is our institutions. We're organizing a big march on La Bastille on March 18th.
We made
the Sixth Republic is on the agenda now, and
we're proposing a referendum which goes much further than any other parties are proposing, which is a referendum on June 10th on totally overhauling the institutions.
It's a very interesting, very interesting
It's a very interesting debate. We have to discuss it at another time.
It has to be done by the people via constitutional assembly, but you're on the right track there.
Okay, both want to change the institution. They're especially hoping to shake the race and make sure there is an upset. We'll have to wait until April 22nd. We'll probably have other occasions prior to that first round to discuss. I want to thank all of you, and thank you for watching Politics here on France 24.